This is a review video on the Sire V5 Fretless 5-string bass. And just so you know, yeah, there's going to be a lot of sound examples in the video, but yes, there's also going to be some talking too, just so you know up front. I just like to let you know. This video is intended for those of you that are interested in buying this bass, and so you're trying to get as much information on it as possible. So this video is trying to give you as much information as possible. So if you're just looking for some sound examples, this might not be the ideal video for you, but we are going to have some sound examples too. So let's actually start with some sound examples now. All right, so since I'm not really an expert fretless bass player, I thought I'd bring in my friend Ian here, who is an expert fretless bass player, because he normally plays this beast.
Aircraft carrier.
Yeah, aircraft carrier with the planes that fly off of it. This is a 7-string B bass. So yeah, it's a monster. So 7 strings. Yeah, so anyway, this thing's crazy. So I wanted to get your opinion. Obviously this is not a, it's not a 7-string carbon fiber,
right.
Everything else, total boutique bass. It's just, a jazz fretless. But tell me what you think your opinions are of this Sire fretless bass.
Well, first off, when you told me the price point, I was floored. But it also, I'm dealing with some mental issues. This is the first time I've played a jazz style instrument in forever, obviously playing. And so it's kind of like coming home, but getting, like we were talking earlier about getting used to the controls, like, oh, right, this is volume. There's not just a volume. I can't just turn one knob down and silence the bass.
Yeah, or have all the other configurations you have on here.
Or 7 bands of EQ. Yeah. I am surprised at how light the bass is, how solid it feels, how well it plays. Have you done setup on this, or is this?
No, that's
how it came to you.
Yeah, it's how it came to me.
So either someone did a good setup, or it came nice out of the box.
I'm pretty sure they said that they didn't do any setup on it.
So it's set up really nicely. It's a medium to medium low action, perfect for me because I can't help myself. I tend to dig in when I play. It's got flats. Talking about another thing that's kind of taken me.
Because these are.
I typically play rounds.
And they're also super lightweight.
I tend to play pretty light.
What's
strings.
the B string on this one?
I think it's a 110.
Wow.
Okay. That tells you how much. I just know it's light.
Yeah, it's very light. It's much light. I mean, those are light. Well, no, wait. Those are normal.
Is it this?
Yeah, that's a lightweight gauge, but that seems like super thick compared to this. Yeah, that's like 125, I think, something like that. 120, 125.
But it plays nice. And you can get some great tones out of it. And honestly, it makes you think. with the volume tone configuration, you kind of have to think about it. You can't just set it and forget it. You've got to be able to adjust it on the fly or remember what you like and get back to it.
Right.
Which is kind of cool. It kind of makes it an interesting aspect that you think about that you don't always think about.
Right.
So it's been kind of cool. But it does play nicely. I like the flats, which I gotta be honest, coming in, I thought I'd be like, this is gross, or but
it's the first time I've had flats on a bass, and I actually like them. I played flats on somebody else's bass before, and I didn't like it, but I've been happy with it on this one.
It's funny because they usually, maybe this is counterintuitive, flats usually feel draggy to me, and these don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's these.
It's almost like your finger sticks to them, even though there's no friction.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a weird, icky feeling on the fingers.
Yes.
Yeah, but those don't seem to have it.
It does not at all.
Yeah.
I do have to comment that the dots are not on the lines, which is my personal preference.
Right. So these would be, the dots on these are directly where the lines would be.
Well, actually, these.
Oh no, these
are the same.
It's that. Oh yeah, he's got another fretless bass out of frame here that he brought. Which one's that one?
That's the stand ball.
The stand ball, right?
And that one, the dots are where the frets would be.
Right.
Which for me is, I don't know. It's what I've been used to. Well, like I was telling you, I've been playing that bass for almost 20 years, so I know where everything is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I figured it out. But yeah, that's thrown me off with that bass too, is that I gotta think for a second when I look at that dot and think it's my landing spot. It's actually not, it's just next to it.
Right.
Not that big of a deal.
Yeah, well, what do you think about like the, because one thing, issues that I had with this bass, even though it's lined, which is nice, the lines are kind of hard to see.
They are a little bit.
Yeah.
But, and I've got to be honest, I'm gonna look at it. I kind of like it.
Yeah?
Well, okay, this is coming, since I typically play unlined, I kind of prefer this appearance-wise, just because, I don't know, I'm not a purist, but I like unlined fretlesses. But this is nice because it's kind of, I can pretend it's unlined if I want, right? Yeah. I can just ignore it. But if I want to spot check something, I can, lean over and like, oh yeah, I'm just behind the line. That should be just fine.
Right.
And they're not bright like these, which are fairly bright, although they're really narrow lines.
Right, they are narrow.
So to most folks, I would say this still looks fairly unlined. It's a very clean looking fingerboard. There's no inlays in it. I think it looks nice. I like the dark lines.
Yeah, for someone like me who's not normally as much of a fretless bass player, my last fretless bass was you had more of a contrast like you do on this one. I kind of did struggle a little the first week on it because it was just like, not only was the lines hard to see because they're dark on dark, but then you also have this shiny finish. And then certain lights or stage it's a little darker or whatever.
It disappears. It's gone.
It can be a little bit more difficult. Luckily, playing on a church stage, it's pretty bright up there.
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes you get into a dark area of the stage, or you turn away from the lights, and then you're in shadow, and you're like, whoa. You go over, make an adjustment. Oops. Go over and make an adjustment on the on your in-ear monitors or something, and then it's like.
Yeah, it came back and like, where'd it go?
Yeah.
Where are my lines?
And then you have to turn back into the light, and you're like, oh, okay, there it is again. Or you catch a certain can that's right on that particular spot and giving you a glare.
And you get a glare, and you can't, am I in between these?
Yeah, so that's the only thing I kind of struggle with even though it's lined, it still kind of threw me a little bit in that regard.
But yeah, but at the price point, I think it's an amazing, matter of fact, I'll even take the price point. I think it's a nice sounding bass, period. I don't want to downplay the value aspect of it or overplay it, really. I think it plays nicely. It sounds nice. It's solid. The neck, the finish, the satin finish on the neck is amazing.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things.
There's no drag happen. Position shifts are super easy. It's a nice bass.
Yeah, I agree. So on a scale of 1 to 10, not even worrying about the price point, what would you say just offhand?
Offhand, I would, offhand 7. Offhand 7.
Offhand 7, okay.
But with the caveat that I'm still, my brain's still kind of melting from playing a jazz style instrument.
Right.
And I'm used to 3-band EQs and active electronics.
7 strings, 6 strings, yeah.
So I've still got some other aspects.
You've only been playing with this for 45
Correct.
minutes.
So right, if this had been in my arsenal for several months, I might be like, oh no, it's like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
It's solid.
Yeah. Okay. And for the price point, 1 to 10, what do you think?
8, 9.
Okay.
For what you paid for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
maybe a 10.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how good the quality. I mean, I was telling you, I think the quality on this Sire bass is better than the Fender American Standard Jazz that I have. It just really, I don't know what they're doing. Hopefully they're not using child labor or anything. Because it's like, how are you guys getting this thing so cheap in price? Because I mean, it's
hopefully it's because of the equipment they're using, not the people.
Yeah. Okay. That's true. I mean, a lot has changed. Nowadays they're doing so much of it. CNC machines and all that other stuff. I keep wanting to say CNC Music Factory, but it's CNC machines. Yeah. Okay.
CNC Bass Factory.
There you go. So maybe that's how they do it. So, we both seem to really like the bass.
Yeah.
And you want to?
I'll noodle around.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure. I'll just play some groovy stuff or whatever. But
okay.
Oh, you said groovy, right?
Or whatever. Whatever you want to play.
I mean, sorry I'm digging in, everyone.
You were playing some chord stuff earlier.
Yeah. Oh, nope. Now I'm back to a different number of strings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're playing that more on.
Oop. That's not the bass's fault, that's mine. Ooh. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, it's a nice playing bass.
Yeah. Cool. All right, well, it gets the Ian thumb of approval.
Thumb of approval.
All right, cool.
Cool. It's funny because it went from the most effort required, not hard to play, but the most effort required, to the least. So by the time, not that I was exactly flying around or anything, but it was just like, oh, I need to stop touching it so hard. It's just like blah, 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 blah.
So that one you were having to play harder.
I really had to put some effort in, but it translated into a really nice sound.
Yeah.
The tone comes from sometimes the work that you have to do to make it happen.
Right.
And sometimes if you end up with something that requires no effort to get the tone and it has infinite sustain, it has like no character. And that's why jazz basses, which I think if you ask like luthiers or experts, but you know, it really is like a flawed design, but it's a flawed design that works perfectly for what it is.
And you know, that's funny you said, because that's exactly how I feel about jazz bass. Is I feel like I have to work it more. I have to finesse and dance around more to make it
I
come
think that's right.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that.
When I was, and I think that's why I got rid of one of the reasons why I got rid of my Stingrays, even though they're fantastic basses, way far better than my Fender Jazz in quality, but I would just play it, I'd go, well, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And on the Jazz, I'm like, that doesn't sound good enough. And you start dancing around on the fretboard.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, here we go, it's right here. And if I dig in a little bit more on this string, it's like there's like, I don't know, you're right. And I think maybe there's like a dance to it. You have to kind of like,
you got to kind of dance with it.
Yeah.
Work, finesse it.
And this kind of instrument is, with the graphite neck and 18-volt electronics and coil tapping. I mean, it'll give you any sound you want with almost no effort, and it's almost like some of the beauty's lost in that. It sounds good. I think the recording of it or me playing it sounded good, but there's something missing maybe. I don't know. It's interesting.
All right, so I'm recording this video in August of 2023. I got this bass about 2 months ago. I bought it used, and from the person I bought it used from had only had it for a short period of time before he sold it to me. So my estimation is this bass was sold sometime in early 2023. So that kind of gives you a time frame of the bass and what version it is. The only disappointment about it was I bought this bass about a month after getting this Lakeland 5501, and when I bought this bass a month prior, this became like my new favorite bass, and it became my #1 bass. I was loving it, playing it. Still on my honeymoon period with this bass when this bass showed up, and it was kind of like, oh man. So now I kind of feel like I was cheating on this bass when I got this bass, because once I got this bass, I was playing it a lot. I was playing it a lot and just played this bass for a few weeks straight until I went back to the Lakeland. Now I'm mostly playing the Lakeland. But anyway, it's a fretted bass versus a fretless, so I can kind of mix them up with however I want to use them. But this bass really is a fantastic bass, and I got this bass to replace a Music Man Stingray 5-string fretless. I know you're probably thinking, wait, you sold a Music Man Stingray Fretless to buy a Sire. Well, I didn't actually sell it to buy a Sire. I sold the Music Man. Actually, I sold 2 Music Mans, a fretted and a fretless 5-string. And I know they're fantastic basses. Yeah, I wasn't crazy to sell them. They're probably the best basses I'll ever own, but they just weren't working as much for me. And so I was kind of moving away from them. I had them for over 20 years. They're great basses, but I just felt like if I'm not using them, I should sell them and get something that I will use. But I wasn't sure what fretless bass I was going to get. The basses I was mostly looking at on the fretless side was an MTD Kingston or a Lakeland, since I'm really liking Lakelands a lot right now, a Lakeland fretless, but either the Skyline series, but even those 2 series, the MTD Kingston and Lakeland Skylines, run about 2 to 3 times the cost of this bass. And in the case of the Lakelands, only ones I could find on the Lakelands were pretty heavy because there's not as many fretless basses out there. So finding, when you find them, they're usually too heavy or too expensive. So this one just kind of popped up, and right now, as I record this in August of 2023, there's not a whole lot of fretlesses available new on the market. And this one, wherever you kind of look, it's usually sold out or whatever. And so when this one popped up as used on the market, I knew it was going to get snatched up pretty quick, so I went ahead and bought it. And it came in at around 9.5 pounds, which isn't ideal for me weight-wise. Actually, I think it's 9.4 is when I weighed it, which isn't bad for a Sire jazz bass, but it's not ideal for me. I'd prefer a lighter bass. That one actually comes in right around 8 pounds, so there's a big difference on it. But this isn't going to be a backbreaker, but just know that the Sire basses will vary a lot in vary a lot in weight. So if that's a concern for you, make sure you check around for the different weights. You'll see them kind of all over the map there, but this one came in around 9.4 pounds. And the bass is really, it's quite a monster of a bass actually. I'm really quite surprised. I wasn't expecting a dual single coil bass that really have the monstrous tone that it has. And out of all the basses that I've played, and I play mostly on church worship teams, and I've gotten a lot of great response from other musicians from this bass, actually even more than my new Lakeland. People are like, hey, I really love the way that Sire sounds. You should play that more often. So this bass is getting a lot of kudos from my fellow musicians and even people in the congregation. I noticed I got a lot more feedback from people, which you don't usually get much feedback from people in the congregation, but I've actually had few people to really say, oh, that bass really sounds awesome. So yeah, it's excellent. It works well live. The main thing that I love about this bass is the neck on it is just absolutely wonderful. And it's important to note that it is a satin finish. In this particular model, the V5, let me turn the volumes down on here. On this V5, the neck is a roasted maple, and it's satin finish on the back, and it's just smooth as can be. It's just wonderful feeling. It's almost like feeling silk. It's that smooth and nice. Now the front of the neck on the fretboard is a little bit shiny. Actually, not a little bit, it's a lot shiny. It's a glossy coat. So it's obviously to protect the fretboard since it's fretless. But just know that even though you see that glossy, shiny coat on the front of the bass, it is not like that on the back of the bass. It is satin finish on the back. The gloss coat stops right at the edge of the fretboard, so it's just glossy on the fretboard itself. And so, yeah, it's a wonderful feeling neck. I mean, this is probably one of the nicest necks I've played on a bass. So Sire really did a great job on the neck. Now the headstock is the Sire headstock, which to me always kind of looks a little, it's almost like they were like, not sure what they were doing. They're like, that'll kind of work. It's sort of a Fender-ish looking cutout, but yeah, it's the Sire headstock. Not the prettiest looking headstock, but I'll have to say, in person, it's not as ugly as it looks in pictures. Not that it's really ugly, it's just, it's just always kind of been a weird kind of shape that they kind of cut there. It kind of looks kind of, just looks unfinished. But like I said, really it's because the wood is so wonderful on it. This roasted maple is just really nice and it feels great that you really don't notice the headstock when you're playing it. So don't worry about that. The tuners are not bad at all. They're these big monster kind of tuners that I had on my Stingrays as well with the 4 screws. So yeah, they're going to be a little bit heavy. I'll show you how the bass, how it balances on a strap as well. But for right now, just know that these tuners are probably going to be pretty heavy, and I'm going to take one off. I'm going to weigh one as well so you can see what the weight is and compare that to other tuners that are available. So if you want to upgrade the bass, you can kind of get an idea how much weight savings you might be able to get on the headstock based on what the weight of one of these tuners weighs. Standard jazz bass configuration on the control panel. This is a passive bass. It's not going to be the active preamp like on the other Sires. I think the V7 fretlesses have the regular Sire preamp control panel there, but this is just a regular vintage, so you just got 2 volumes and a tone, so just keep that in mind. Don't buy the V5 expecting the preamp because you're not going to get that, but I'm okay with just having the passive control plate because I kind of tend to prefer passive on my basses, although I kind of bounce back and forth. But anyway, but what's cool about the jazz plate, since it's a standard jazz plate, you can swap it out with really any of the other aftermarket control plate preamps that are out there, like the John East and the Ardor, however you pronounce it. So yeah, there's a lot of options out there. And the pickups, even though you don't hear it, I can turn up one pickup right now. I'm just playing through my computer system right now. It doesn't make any hums or anything at all here in the studio, but when I go and play live, I hear lots of hum in between songs, so bear that in mind. If you're playing it live, you're probably going to hear some hum from this bass, whereas in the studio, it doesn't really seem to be that bad. Actually, I don't hear any at all. I'll also play the bass through an amp for you, and also play it through my pedal board too, so I can throw some distortion and stuff like that on there, overdrive, and so you can kind of hear how it sounds with that. I also should note that the bass came with flat wound strings, which this is the only bass I've ever owned with flat wound strings. I've played other basses with flat wound strings, didn't like them, but I actually really like the flat wounds on this. They feel really good, and according to people I asked on the internet, I believe they are chromes. The flat wounds are chromes, so yeah, I tend to actually kind of like them. One of the things that I like about them is that your fingers move over them a lot better than on other flats that I've played. Also, they have more of a bite to them than I was expecting for flats. They actually have a nice, good growly tone to them. Although I did buy some round wound strings, so I can put those on for this video review as well, so you can see how the bass also sounds with round wound. And other than that, I'm also going to take some stuff apart on the bass. Like I said, I'm going to take a tuner off. I'm also going to take the control panel off the bass so we can kind of look inside there. And I'm also going to see if the pick guard is swappable with a Fender pick guard, because I also have a Fender 5-string jazz bass, and just kind of see how swappable the parts are in that regard. The bridge is your standard bent plate jazz type bridge, so nothing out of the ordinary there. It's got the ability to string the bass through body or through the bridge, either or there. So, and also it's got this string tree that holds down all 5 strings, which is similar to the string tree on the Lakeland that I have, so I like that. And I think that's all I can really tell you about it. So let's do some more sound examples and also do some more fun playing around with the bass and taking some stuff apart. All right, so I've got the bass now going through my Mesa Boogie preamp pedal. I've also got it, I got my Battalion, Electro Harmonix Battalion, mini Battalion, overdrive pedal set up as well, so you can kind of hear how it sounds through some pedals. And I don't know if everybody thinks about especially a fretless bass with flats on it as being something that you would really kind of push and overdrive and kind of get a more aggressive sound out of. I usually think of fretlesses as more pretty and, you know, melodic kind of instruments, but actually you can kind of push it pretty good, and even with flats on it, it can get pretty aggressive. So that's just with the Mesa Boogie preamp, kind of getting a more vintage voicing on it. If we add some overdrive, kind of really digging into the strings, just having the neck pickup on and the tone is all the way up. It can get pretty good sound. The only thing is that, you know, if you're kind of going for a more clanky kind of sound, to me it just, which I typically don't use a clanky type of sound much, but I don't find that it's easy to get on this bass. If I do want a more clanky, clacky, if I call it clinky, clack, whatever, however you phrase that term, I think it's clack, but I'm saying clink. Either way, whichever the right terminology is, I don't use that type of sound a lot. But to me, since it doesn't have frets, sometimes it just sounds buzzy and noisy. It doesn't have the same kind of effect. Also, and I'm gonna turn the overdrive off, if you were wanting to do more of a slap bass, it's not so much slap as it is kind of like, almost sounds like splash, almost like a water drop hitting the floor, because you don't have frets to kind of give that metallic punch to it that you would hear on a slap bass. But again, I don't play much slap, so no issue there for me, and I've got fretted basses if I want to. And so the overdrive pedal's back on here, and again, just the neck pickup. So if we turn the tone off, kind of get that warm. I use overdrive, not like overkill. I use overdrive just to kind of give it a little nice edge to the sound. So it definitely takes to an overdrive pedal, in my opinion, quite well. So anyway, I'll do a quick sound example with more of an overdrive sound on the bass and show you what it sounds like. Okay, so with any bass that you're playing, one of the important aspects of it is how well does it balance. When you're standing up playing it with a strap on, you want to make sure it's not going to have a lot of neck dive and have a lot of pressure on your shoulder. So I'm going to go ahead and stand up with this bass on a strap, and I'm going to let go of the bass and it doesn't do too bad. I can feel it a little bit on my shoulder. It kind of wants to dive a little bit from the headstock, but a lot of it has to do with, I think, these heavier tuners. I think if you were to replace the tuners with something a little lighter, like ultralight tuners by Hipshot, then you would have some better success, because I put Hipshot tuners on my Fender Jazz bass and it seemed to help a little bit as well. So, but otherwise, I think the balance of the bass is what you would expect from a jazz bass. All right, so I've got the Sire bass next to my Fender Jazz. What I'm going to do, out of curiosity, I've got a spare pick guard for my Jazz. This is the original one that came with it. I upgraded to a black pick guard. I'm going to see if this will fit on the Sire. Right off the hand, I can tell, well, it's probably not, because as you can see, you got 3 screws here versus 4 screws there. So I know that's not going to work, but I'm going to go ahead and see how closely it matches. All right, so let's take this pick guard off. Also see what it looks like underneath. Actually, this thing is not wanting to come up. There it goes. There we go. And what's interesting on this, it does not have a route between where this pickup is to the control plate. On my Fender Jazz, it does have a route right there. So that's kind of cool that it doesn't have that on the Sire. It's got some debris up under this pick guard here. Let's put these pick guards together. Yeah, they're not going to match at all, but we'll still throw it on just to see. So yeah, definitely you can tell that the neck, it won't fit down over the neck. The neck profile is just a little bit different. So it's not going to fit. All right, so we know that now. Pick guard is not going to work. So let's take the control plate off, see what it looks like underneath. That's what she looks like inside. Okay, so there's one thing I haven't mentioned on this bass that I wanted to bring up, and this is just a personal thing. Has nothing to do with the quality of the instrument or anything, but I just wanted to point out the color. When I bought the bass, and I think it's like a vintage white color is what they call it, and when you get the actual instrument home and you know, I opened up out of the box, I'm like, wow, it's really yellow. It's like yellow looking. It actually looks like plastic that's been sitting out in the sun for too long, and it's kind of, you know, it's gotten that colored, you know, older, faded, yellowish look, and I just don't understand that. I know that that seems to be an in vogue thing. A lot of people like that vintage white that looks discolored, but to me, I just go, yeah, why is that a popular color? I don't get it. But I will say that when, you know, in pictures, and when I saw it in pictures, it looks more of a white color. And also when you're up on stage with it under lights, it definitely has more of a white color. But in person, when you're looking at it, just know that it's a lot more yellow than it typically looks in photographs. Although I've seen some other photographs where vintage white tends to vary a lot and you do see more of the yellow, but it's definitely in real life, it's more of a yellow color. Why do people want discolored yellow? I would definitely much rather, well, maybe it doesn't have to be white like this, but definitely, I mean, like if you look at the DJ5 or DJ4s by Lakeland, that pearl white color, oh, that's just gorgeous. And then you see this and it's like puke looking. So anyway, that's just my little personal rant. It has nothing to do with the bass. It's still a lovely instrument when you're up on stage with it. All right, so the one of the tuners with the screws on the bass comes in at 88 grams. So there's definitely a lot of weight that can be trimmed from the bass by switching to a lighter weight tuner, or tuners, I should say. One of the important things I think you need to know if you're considering buying this bass, especially if it's your first fretless bass, is I really think you need to know about the lines on the neck. It is a lined fretless, which means it's easier to play fretless because you can see where your fingers should go based on the fret lines. However, I think it's important to state that these lines are a little bit more difficult to see on most lined fretless basses, at least on all the other lined fretless basses I've either owned or played. Because in this case, you've got a darker, even though this is maple, it's flamed maple, or excuse me, not flamed maple, it's roasted maple. So it's a darker maple, and you also have black lines on top of a darker wood. And so that makes it a little bit harder to see these lines. And in addition to that, since you've got this coating on the fretboard, it's a shiny coating. So anytime you're in the lights, you get a glare off the fretboard, which just makes it even a little bit harder to actually see. And in different lighting conditions, you'll have either an easier or harder time seeing these lines. Of course, you know, in your bedroom practicing and full lighting, it shouldn't really be much of a problem. But depending on the stage that you're playing on, when you're playing out live, depending on the lighting, if it's a darker club that you're playing in, or you got a lot of flashing lights and a lot of different changing lighting going on with your show, there might be times when seeing the actual lines on this fretboard might be a little bit harder. And so that's why I wanted to point that out to you. Now, you could kind of view that as almost a go-between of a lined fretless and an unlined fretless. So if you're kind of like on the fence and you're like, yeah, I'm not sure, I kind of want to experiment with getting a unlined fretless, but I'm not quite sure if I'm really up to that challenge. Well, you could almost view this bass as kind of an in-between because it's harder to see the lines on this as opposed to all the other lines I've seen on other fretless basses. But at the same time, you could kind of view it as, oh, well, I kind of want to challenge myself and not really look at the lines as much, but they are there if you really want to go, okay, where am I actually at on the bass? All right, so even though I was perfectly happy with the Roundwounds on the fretless bass here, for your sake, I went ahead and I swapped out the strings with some Roundwounds. These are some Ernie Ball Slinkies, and so that you can kind of hear the difference on the bass. It's yeah, I mean, it works either way. I mean, I like the flat wounds on them, but these work good too. I get my own intonation. I didn't do any setup or anything on the bass after I changed out the strings. I just plopped them on, and the strings are probably still stretching out a little. I'll blame that for my being off on intonation. So that's with both pickups on, the tone all the way up. And with the bridge on. So yeah, it's works either way. Because you got this heavy-duty coating on the fretboard, you shouldn't have to worry too much about wear on the fretboard if you want to switch out to Roundwounds. But if it were me, I probably would have just kept the flat wounds on it. But I just at least wanted to try it out with the Roundwounds. So let's try it out on one of the demo songs that I did earlier.
This is a control plate from the original control plate from my Fender Jazz bass. I had upgraded it to a short circuit electronics control plate, and I just wanted to point something out. On the Fender Jazz, this is the knobs all the way turned off. This is the knobs on the Sire all the way turned off. As you can see, they're in different directions. So whoever put the knobs on, and this one's a little off-centered from the others, they definitely, and these would be all the way on, Fender, all the way on. So the knobs are a little bit askew there. No big deal, right? So you can just pop off the knobs and change them. But I just also wanted to point this out. On the Fender, it's actually got screws right here. We unscrew it and then you can pull the knob off. On this, there are no screws here. So apparently, according to a Google search that I did, you can just pop them off with a screwdriver or spoon or something like that, and they should come off. I haven't tried that yet, but just wanted to point this other little quirk about the bass out to you. And just for the record, I just tried it, and yeah, it works great. You can just use 2 spoons to pop off the knob, and there you go. Now you can reposition the knob in whatever orientation that you want it for the knobs. So there you go.
All right, so my final assessment on this bass is that Sire really did an outstanding job on it. This is, if you're looking for a 5-string fretless jazz style bass, then this is it. Or I guess if you're looking for a 4-string as well, since it comes in a 4-string model. But yeah, this is really the bass to get. You can't beat the price. You can't beat the performance, the quality of it. In my opinion, the build quality on this Sire, I think, exceeds the quality on my American Standard, Fender American Standard jazz bass. You can just tell when you have it in your hands. I play this and then I pick up my Fender Jazz and it's just like, wow, Squire's just totally killing my Fender. But yeah, it's really a great bass. And if I was to rate this bass, I would give it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 5 tuning pegs. Sorry, Lobster, I couldn't resist. I had to do that. So yeah, it's a great bass, and check it out. Sire bass, the V5 Fretless. God bless you. Thanks for watching.